We think we understand the new generation because we understand their technology. We know the apps. We know the trends. We know the words they use. But knowing the tools is not the same as understanding the world those tools created. Some adults don't follow any of it. To them, the new generation looks strange, distracted, sensitive, impossible to reach. But even the adults who do follow it can miss the deeper part. Because following a world is not the same as growing up inside it. A 45-year-old can learn every platform. They can understand the interface better than a teenager. But they did not become themselves while being watched, ranked, compared, and measured by it. That is the difference. This is not a video about blaming young people, and it is not a video about blaming older people. It is about the invisible system between them. The system that made one generation feel impossible to understand. Because this generation was not only raised by parents, schools, and culture, it was also raised by feeds, by metrics, by invisible rewards and punishments. They were raised by the algorithm. Every generation has felt misunderstood. The music was too loud. The clothes were too strange. The language was too different. Older people always thought something had gone wrong. But this time, the difference is not just style. It is not just slang. It is not just music, clothes, or attitude. This time, the environment itself changed. Older generations had private mistakes, private awkwardness, private silence. The new generation grew up with fewer private moments than any generation before them. They learned who they were while being visible. They learned what was acceptable while being judged in real time. They learned what mattered by watching what got rewarded. That changes a person. A mirror used to show you your face. Now the mirror shows you your value. How many people noticed? How many reacted? How many ignored you? You don't need visible numbers for the score to exist. A delayed reply can feel like a verdict. A silence can feel like rejection. A lack of attention can feel like proof that you are less. When you grow up like this, identity becomes feedback. You try something, the world reacts. Then you adjust yourself, again and again and again. Older people also performed. Of course they did. But many of them had places where the performance stopped. This generation often grew up with the stage still on. The audience does not have to be real to shape you. Sometimes it is imagined. Sometimes it is remembered. Sometimes it is waiting in your head before you even speak. From the outside, it looks simple. They cannot focus. They are always anxious. They avoid difficulty. They need too much reassurance. So we give them easy labels. Lazy, soft, addicted, too sensitive. But labels are what we use when we do not understand the system behind the behavior. And older people are not always wrong. Something did change. Attention is weaker. Patience is thinner. Real connection often feels harder than it should. But the cause is deeper than personality, deeper than manners, deeper than kids these days. A generation cannot grow up inside constant stimulation and come out unchanged. Maybe they are not broken. Maybe they adapted to a world that rewards speed over depth, reaction over reflection, visibility over peace. From the inside, it does not feel like weakness. It feels like being compared before you know who you are. It feels like growing up beside perfect versions of everyone else. It feels like never being alone with yourself long enough to become yourself. It feels like being reachable all the time, even when no one is calling, even when nothing is happening. The body is alone, but the mind is never fully offline. It feels like every moment can become content. Every opinion can become a statement. Every mistake can become evidence. Every version of you can be saved before you even understand it. And when the rules change every week, stability becomes difficult. What is cool changes. What is acceptable changes. What is embarrassing changes. So the self becomes something you constantly update. And the hardest part is this: they may not fully understand themselves either. Because when you grow up inside the noise can feel normal, until silence starts to feel unbearable. This does not excuse everything, but it explains something. A person shaped by pressure will not behave like someone shaped by privacy. A person raised inside metrics will not feel seen the same way. The real divide is not young versus old. It is not modern versus outdated. The real divide is environmental. One side learned the machine, the other side was shaped by it. Older people feel pushed away. They try to talk, but the language feels different. They try to help, but the problems look invisible. So frustration turns into judgment. Young people feel misread. They hear advice from a world that no longer exists. They are told to calm down by people who never lived inside this level of noise. So pain turns into distance. Both sides are often looking at symptoms. The adult sees attitude. The young person sees control. But behind both of them is the same system, teaching them to misunderstand each other. And the system benefits from the gap. The less they understand each other, the more each side retreats into its own feed, its own language, its own fears, its own version of reality. Maybe the question is not, what app are they using? Maybe the question is, what kind of person does this environment create? Understanding does not mean agreeing with everything. It does not mean excusing every behavior. It means looking deeper than the label. It means seeing the environment before judging the person. The bridge between generations will not be built by pretending the gap is small. It will be built by admitting that the gap is real, and then asking better questions across it. Not to win, to understand. They are not aliens. They are not impossible. They are people who grew up inside a world we are still learning to name. And maybe that is why they feel so hard to reach. We learned the technology. They grew up inside its consequences. So, before we decide what is wrong with them, maybe we should ask what kind of world raised them.